Snapchat became a private language of a generation almost overnight and felt inevitable to insiders. It built intimacy with ephemeral messages and playful filters that delighted users daily. But 10 years after the party started, the company still has not reported a single profitable year. This episode is a portrait of a company that reshaped teenage life yet struggled to turn cultural power into a sustainable business. We will trace the IPO, the competitive assaults, the fiscal strain, and the hard choices that now define its future. In 2011, a small team built an app meant for private, vanishing messages that felt modern and intimate to early users. The product design encouraged candid sharing by promising impermanence and playful augmentation of faces and scenes through lenses. From that design came a cultural contagion that spread across high schools and colleges with extraordinary speed and ferocity. Snapchat's early growth was organic and peer-driven because it offered something different from the polished feeds of existing platforms. The app's identity became synonymous with youthful spontaneity and a private publicness that felt new and desirable to teenagers worldwide. By 2016, Snapchat had sealed its place as a cultural phenomenon among younger demographics and started to catch adult attention. The company introduced Stories, Discover, and augmented reality lenses that turned faces into dynamic canvases for self-expression. Those features became signature elements of Snapchat's identity and drew advertisers who wanted to reach younger audiences. The app's user experience felt native and intimate, and brands wanted to be part of that environment. Even if traditional ad metrics did not yet fit the medium, momentum felt unstoppable, and the market began to whisper about a potential public offering that could redefine the social media landscape. Snap Inc. went public in 2017 in a highly anticipated IPO that symbolized a new generation of social platforms seeking mainstream legitimacy. The company debuted with a valuation many observers considered generous and with expectations that growth would continue at breakneck speed. Investors were buying into narrative as much as numbers, betting on continued youth engagement and advertising innovation. The IPO was the peak moment of external validation for a company that had built cultural capital, but still lacked a proven roadmap to consistent profitability. Public markets began to demand answers about how ephemeral sharing and playful lenses would translate into recurring revenue streams and dependable returns. From the beginning, Snapchat's business model relied heavily on advertising, but required new formats and measurement to satisfy marketers demanding ROI. The company experimented with sponsored lenses, Discover channel partnerships, and vertical video ads designed for mobile consumption. Advertisers responded cautiously because measurement tools were immature and the audience, while engaged, was notoriously hard to reach with traditional targeting. These ad products showed promise, but also revealed structural problems in scaling revenue quickly enough to offset rising expenses. The company continued to burn cash on engineering, content deals, and product experiments, while advertisers sought more reliable, measurable returns on their investments. Then Instagram introduced Stories, a nearly identical feature that stripped away Snapchat's exclusive advantage almost overnight and exposed the platform to a new kind of competition. Instagram copied the core idea and delivered it to a larger, more mainstream audience, anchored by Facebook's massive ad infrastructure. The move not only slowed Snapchat's growth, but also gave advertisers a safer, easier way to reach similar audiences at scale. For Snapchat, the psychological blow was as important as the strategic one, because it revealed how fast product features could be replicated when the underlying idea was simple and viral. The company scrambled to differentiate itself with augmented reality and private messaging. But the window for unchallenged dominance had narrowed considerably. Facebook's family of apps benefited from a mature advertising ecosystem that Snapchat could not match easily or quickly. Advertisers tended to favor platforms with established measurement, targeting, and scale, and Facebook offered all three in abundance. Snapchat was forced to innovate ad products while proving their effectiveness to a skeptical buyer base increasingly reliant on metrics and predictable outcomes. The competitive imbalance created a revenue gap because advertisers could reallocate spend to platforms that offered both attention and conversion, leaving Snapchat to sell a niche premium that was expensive to maintain. This dynamic would shape the company's revenue trajectory and investor patience for years to come. While Snapchat dealt with Facebook's copying, a new competitor emerged that would change the rules of youth attention entirely in the form of TikTok. TikTok introduced short looping videos and algorithmic feeds that rewarded immediate engagement and rapid discovery. Young users migrated quickly because TikTok offered immediate virality and a lower barrier to creative expression than other platforms. Snapchat found itself squeezed between Instagram's feature parity and TikTok's attention, grabbing algorithmic feed, and it struggled to hold user time and creative energy. The company continued to innovate in augmented reality and private sharing, but the social fabric of youth attention had already begun to unravel in unpredictable ways. User growth that had once felt unstoppable began to slow and sometimes reverse in key markets as competitors consolidated their positions. Snapchat's daily active users plateaued, and growth became dependent on product experiments and regional push. The demographic that once defined Snapchat's identity started to diversify their attention across multiple apps that offered new forms of entertainment and easier fame. As user growth slowed, revenue growth could not accelerate quickly enough to close the gap toward profitability, and investors began to ask harder questions about product market fit in a crowded ecosystem. The company faced the difficult reality that cultural relevance alone was not sufficient to guarantee a sustainable business model. Even with impressive revenue growth in some quarters, Snapchat has never posted a profitable full year, and losses kept piling higher over time. The company faced recurring operating expenses that included content partnerships, RDT for augmented reality, and costly infrastructure to serve video-heavy features. Each quarter's revenue gains were often eaten by investment in products meant to secure future growth, creating a repetitive cycle of spending and expectation. Investors became frustrated as revenues grew, but profitability remained elusive, and the market began to price that skepticism into Snap's valuation. The narrative shifted from cultural darling to the perennial growth company that must eventually demonstrate sustainable margins or face permanent revaluation. The share price that once celebrated Snap's IPO highs later faced a brutal correction that erased much of investor optimism and left the stock down roughly 90% from peak valuations. Market sentiment shifted as growth metrics missed expectations, and competitive pressure intensified around ad revenue. A 90% decline is not just a number, it is a signal of market reassessment and diminished tolerance for uncertainty. For many employees and early investors, that decline meant shrinking paper wealth and a narrower runway to prove the business case for long-term independence. The company now operated under the weight of public scrutiny and an impatient market that expected meaningful evidence of a path to profits. Faced with a collapsing valuation and mounting losses, Snapchat initiated multiple rounds of layoffs and cost-cutting to preserve cash and extend its runway. These decisions were painful and signaled a deeper problem in converting cultural influence into reliable economics. Layoffs reduced headcount across product sales and content teams and became a recurring theme in Snap's public narrative. Cost-cutting bought time, but also reduced the company's ability to experiment at scale and to maintain the content and product velocity that attracted users in the first place. The tension between trimming expenses and preserving future innovation created difficult trade-offs for leadership and investors alike. Some of Snapchat's most public product bets did not deliver the expected returns, with spectacles serving as a cautionary example of hardware risk. The sunglasses with integrated cameras were ambitious and charming, but failed to become a mass consumer hit and resulted in inventory write-offs and strategic distraction. Hardware investments drained capital and managerial attention away from the core business and highlighted the risk of spreading resources too thin. Products like spectacles taught a hard lesson about the limits of brand-driven hardware in a world where software scale matters more than physical novelty. The company retained creative experimentation as a virtue, but learned that hardware missteps could materially damage financial flexibility and strategic focus. Despite commercial struggles, Snapchat developed genuine technical advantages in augmented reality that some observers regarded as the company's most defensible asset. Snap's AR lenses and developer platform turned millions of faces into canvases for sponsored experiences and creative expression. Engineers built sophisticated computer vision capabilities that made real-time facial and environmental effects feel fast and magical. This technology has value beyond advertising because it could underpin future platforms for commerce, entertainment, and social interaction anchored in the camera. The strategic question became whether Snap could translate AR technical leadership into sustainable monetization at a scale that satisfied investors. Selling ad inventory on an app that emphasizes privacy, ephemeral sharing, and intimate connections created measurement and targeting challenges for Snapchat's ad business. Advertisers crave reliable attribution and conversion metrics, which were historically easier to obtain on deeply integrated platforms like Facebook and Google. Snapchat's emphasis on privacy and ephemeral content made building robust measurement tools both a technical and philosophical challenge. Snap attempted to bridge the gap with new ad formats and analytics offerings, but adoption was gradual and uneven across advertiser segments. The mismatch between how the product felt to users and how marketers wanted to measure results remained a persistent obstacle to scaling revenue predictably. Snap's focus on user privacy sometimes worked against its ability to monetize with precision, because less tracking equals less targeting and smaller CPMs. The post-tracking era of digital advertising rewarded companies that could adapt while still delivering value to advertisers, and Snap struggled to fully reconcile these forces. Privacy became a selling point to users, but a constraint in the highly optimized world of digital advertising. The debate around privacy versus monetization is not unique to Snap, but is central to understanding why some social networks thrive financially, while others with similar user bases do not. Snap's commitment to a privacy-first camera experience created long-term brand trust, but also complicated the short-term economics the market demanded. Geographic expansion presented another set of challenges for Snapchat as it tried to scale beyond Western markets into places like India and Southeast Asia. Local competitors and differences in mobile behavior required tailored products and go-to-market strategies that were expensive to implement. Snap's westernized product assumptions met varied local realities, and international monetization lagged behind domestic progress. Global growth is expensive and difficult, and for Snapchat, those costs compounded the broader struggle to find sustainable profitability at scale. International wins were uneven, and the company had to decide which markets to prioritize while conserving cash and managerial attention. Leadership decisions and corporate culture played an outsized role in the company's trajectory because strategic priorities determine where resources flow and which experiments are permitted to linger. Even Spiegel and his leadership team maintained a focus on product control and user privacy that often required patience and long-term thinking. That long-termism was sometimes at odds with investor impatience for immediate profitability and quarterly results. Culture both enabled innovation and introduced blind spots when the market demanded discipline and repeatability. The balance between visionary product development and operational rigor remains one of the defining tensions of modern technology companies and a central dilemma in Snapchat's story. Faced with mounting pressure, Snap repositioned itself as a camera company and doubled down on augmented reality as the next platform for social computing and commerce. The camera-first thesis envisions a future where smart glasses and AR overlays make visual communication primary and deeply intertwined with commerce. This strategy is bold because it bets the company's future on an infrastructural shift in how people interact with the world. Such a pivot requires patience, capital, and a clear path to monetization that few companies can guarantee in advance. The question for Snap is whether its AR leadership can become a durable moat that attracts developers, advertisers, and consumers at scale. There are several plausible futures for Snapchat, ranging from acquisition to steady survival to radical reinvention as a new platform category. Acquisition would represent a quick financial win for shareholders, but could collapse Snap's identity and culture into a larger entity. Survival as an independent company requires steady improvement in ad products, measurement, and possibly new revenue streams like subscriptions or commerce integration. The most optimistic scenario is reinvention, where Snap's AR and camera investments blossom into a new platform that opens scalable monetization paths. Each outcome depends on execution, market dynamics, competition, and an element of luck that has historically favored nimble disruptors or powerful incumbents. Investors have suggested numerous monetization ideas that include premium subscriptions, deeper commerce integrations, and licensing AR tools to third parties and developers. Subscriptions could provide recurring revenue, but require compelling value that users will pay to retain. Commerce integration could turn the camera into a visual storefront, but that demands robust product discovery and trusted payment systems. Licensing AR technology to enterprise customers or other app developers provides another avenue for revenue, but requires Snap to package and scale its tools while protecting its core consumer franchise. None of these paths are easy, and each requires careful calibration between growth investment and margin improvement. The broader lesson of Snapchat's struggle is that cultural influence does not automatically translate into financial sustainability when product economics are mismatched with advertiser expectations. Attention is valuable, but it must be packaged and measured in ways that align with buyers who control revenue. Snapchat's story shows how quickly structural advantages can erode when competitors replicate core features or redefine attention with new formats. There is a philosophical tension here between cultural value and economic value that technology companies must navigate if they hope to survive long-term. Entrepreneurs and investors alike should study Snapchat as an object lesson in the fragility of cultural monopolies in a hyper-competitive digital environment. Snapchat's persistence also offers a second lesson about the limits and possibilities of technical leadership in emergent platforms like augmented reality. Technology can create new forms of social interaction that are difficult for competitors to replicate easily, and Snap has demonstrated real technical muscle in AR and vision systems. That technical depth provides a base from which the company could build differentiated products that attract developers and commercial partners. However, technical leadership must still connect to a repeatable economic model, and without that linkage, the technical wins remain interesting but not decisive. The future will be determined by whether Snap can convert our experiences into scalable revenue without sacrificing the user trust that made it valuable initially. For users and observers, the most important question is not whether Snapchat will survive in some form, but whether it will matter in the same way again. Social platforms rise and fall with cultural tides, and what matters is the power to shape attention and social habits over decades rather than quarters. Snapchat's cultural imprint is undeniable, but influence without financial durability is vulnerable to erosion by competitors with stronger monetization tools. If Snapchat succeeds, it will be because it finds a model that aligns user experience with advertiser value in ways that competitors cannot easily replicate. If it fails, its story will still be instructive about the fragility of cultural advantage amid relentless commercial pressure. In the end, Snapchat's journey teaches a simple but profound lesson about timing, execution, and the rhythm of technological change. Being first or culturally dominant is powerful but insufficient without a clear economic engine that scales reliably with growth. Businesses must align product uniqueness with advertiser needs and user willingness to pay, or risk repeatedly chasing future potential without ever delivering durable returns. If this video gave you a new perspective on technology, culture, and markets, hit subscribe to follow more stories about how ideas become industries and how companies survive or fail. Thank you for watching, and keep questioning the narratives behind the apps you use every day.